AgriChat is an initiative of the Melbourne Royal Emerging Leaders Group. My name is Grace Calder. I am the chair of the Melbourne Royal Emerging Leaders Group, along with the vice chairperson, Tom Havers, who you'll hear from a little later this afternoon. This group was created by Melbourne Royal in early 2021 as a platform for young agribusiness professionals with a particular focus on creating opportunities to promote and celebrate youth in agriculture, including across Victorian agricultural shows, farming, agribusiness and agri-tech. Today's AgriChat topic is Pathways into Dairy, Raising Aspirations in Agriculture. This AgriChat forum will provide a platform for a lively discussion focusing on a variety of topics relating to the future of agriculture, specifically around career pathways into the dairy industry. I'd now like to introduce you to our host, who some of you will have met this morning, Tim Thompson. Over to you, Tim. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Grace, and welcome everyone to the AgriChat forum. I think whether you're young or old, you'll be fascinated with the guests that we have here today. It's my pleasure to be hosting this session as we debate and discuss issues and speculate on the topic of pathways into dairy, raising aspirations in agriculture. Now, I know that dairy has had ups and downs, and they've all been widely broadcast. Usually with the news media, downs are better broadcast than the ups, but dairy is in a wonderful position at the moment. And it's quite appropriate that we've got these guests here today to ask. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Patrick Anderson, Kristen Davis, and last but certainly not least, next to me here is Dr. Amy Cosby. Well, without further ado, let's get started with some questions. Now, I will look up to the bleachers as often as I possibly can. There's no one behind me, so that makes the job a little bit easier. If you have a question, please do raise your hand. It would be wonderful to have as many questions from the crowd here today as possible, because I think that will add to the depth and the specificity of the questions. But I'm going to start out with a few of my own, just to get the discussion going. So I'm going to ask Kristen, if I may, what opportunities do you think there are in dairy for young people at the moment?
So I kind of think that the opportunities within dairy are sort of endless. No matter what sort of career path you want to take, there's an opportunity there, whether, engineering and going into the processor side, whether or not you love animals and want to go to the vet side, or working in herd improvement, or working on farm. Like, there's honestly no limit to what you can do in dairy, and it is incredibly diverse. So no matter what you want to achieve, there's a pathway for you, I think, in dairy.
And we've got probably a number of young people here today, and certainly some young people who might be watching this discussion in the future. What's your advice for young people who want to get into the industry who are not born into it?
I guess for myself, I wasn't born into dairy either. It's just about putting yourself out there, and I think networks is a really important component of that. And for me, it was about going to events and meeting people the networks within dairy are massive, and there's so many people out there that are so willing to give you guidance and help you to achieve what you want to achieve, as long as you put yourself out there. Put your best foot forward, and the opportunities are there for you.
So use your networks and work hard.
Yep.
Yeah, very good. I think that's good advice for anyone in any industry. Amy, what do you think will be the 2 key career paths in dairy, considering as it's changing so much in the way that we work on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think there's a number of different career paths, but if I was thinking about 2 maybe new career paths that will be exciting into the future, I think that space of agri-tech, precision livestock management, all those different areas that are using lots of new and emerging technology. So I think that young people these days are really interested in how technology works. So taking on their knowledge and applying it to an on-farm situation is a really exciting pathway. So like Kristen said, even if you're not from an agricultural background, you can have really big impacts, positive impacts on the farm. And I think also pathways in advocacy and showing our best foot in dairy. So like you already mentioned, that there's often that that pathway or that perception that agriculture is not a great career, or it's only for people that are from farming backgrounds. So 50% of agricultural careers are in the city. So if you don't want to move outside of the city, you can still make a great contribution to agriculture. So I think that's also really important to know.
And I see that we already have an audience member question, and I'm sure it's been inspired by what you've had to say, and it's certainly sage advice. So I'll just go over and I'll get our question.
Could I ask the panel, Gordon Williamson from Melbourne Polytechnic, would the panel like to comment on what opportunities will regenerative agriculture bring to dairy, or how will regenerative agriculture change dairy? Thanks.
So regenerative agriculture, of course, moving forward is very important for the sustainability of the planet. And I think synthetic fertilizers and that do get a bad rap in everyday thing, and a lot of people do abuse that kind of way of doing. But I think I've grown up in this area, and I grew up just 4 k's over the hill, and I think you'd be surprised the amount of people around here that when it comes down to their pastures, they're really particular about multicultural. You want pastures that are going to be available all year round, but that doesn't mean it's one species, like mixing and that kind of thing. So in that's regenerative to the land, because there's always a plant there pulling the carbon out of the air, putting it back into the ground. And then the same with effluent and manure usage, that's going back into the land to help increase the organic matter in the soil. So I think no matter what, every farmer nowadays is going to that regenerative pathway of what can we do to make this land more productive using what we've got, and as well the price of diesel, the price of fertiliser now. It's so important to do as much as you can on your own farm, whether that's using more effluent or composting old hay and silage and that kind of thing. So I think regenerative agriculture is really important moving forward.
And I think it's probably critical that at an education level we support farmers in making that move. That would be well worth doing, wouldn't it, Patrick?
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you for that answer. I'm sure that was a really tight and concise answer for that question, so that's brilliant. What are the challenges or things people should be aware of when entering the dairy industry, Kristen? And maybe that's a question for Patrick as well, so we might start with you and go over to Patrick.
I think the only real challenge that is there is seasonality and how variable dairy can be. Every season is slightly different, and sometimes you have ups and downs, and so you've got to be a fairly resilient person to try and adapt to that and be there to support farmers through those changing situations, I think.
As for challenges of getting into dairy, I don't think there really is a challenge. I think every farmer out there is looking for more workers. Everyone needs an extra hand. If you put your hand up, there's going to be the opportunities there. But I suppose the challenges may come in say a work-life balance. Like, it is hard to find that. But Christian just said every season's different, but also every farm's different. So you might go work for a farmer and say he only calves in winter, so you have to be there in winter, but you might be someone that loves going up in the mountains snow skiing, So, you might not have that flexibility in winter, but in summer, he's like, "Oh yeah, go take a few weeks off. We're right now. We don't really need the extra hand now." So it's finding a workplace that suits you, as well as finding the opportunity to suit you.
And that probably brings us into our next question. What does for those who are uninitiated into dairy, maybe aren't even from Gippsland here today, what's the average day look like on a dairy farm for you, Patrick?
And this comes back to before, every dairy farm is different, and even the job you get on that dairy farm may be different. You might be just a milker, you might rock up in the morning, milk the cows, go home, come back in the afternoon, or you might be, personally what I prefer to do is, rock up, milk in the morning, work all day, maybe have afternoon milking off, or even milk into the afternoon, because I'm the kind of person that I don't just, want to just have an empty space in the middle of the day. But if you think about, cows have to be milked morning and night, no matter what. So there's always going to be stuff to do then, and during the middle of the day, there's plenty of jobs to go around. You may hate milking, and you want to do nothing else, but you would rather do anything else but milking. That's fine. You can still find a job on a dairy farm, but you might sit in a tractor all day, and you might be doing all the feed runs, not necessarily down in the pit doing the milking.
So lots of varied roles and lots of ability to specialise and find your niche. Yeah. Amy, I might start this next question with you. What have been the pros and cons in your career in ag, or your wins and losses throughout your career?
That's a good question. So at the moment I work for a university based in Queensland, but I work from my lounge room or from the farm. So I think one of the great things, and that was pre-COVID, so for the last 7 years I've worked from home. So I think because agriculture is such an important industry across the country, it's really given me the opportunity to, mould my work to suit my situation. So what that means is I can milk in the morning with my husband. When we're calving and really busy, I can feed calves and do things. So if there's any opportunities, anything that props up, I'm able to help on the farm whilst balancing an off-farm income. So the challenges with that, though, is, it can be quite isolating working away from your team. You never leave work when you work from home. So not only on the farm, but from the office, if somebody calls you or there's an email, you don't have that ability to say, "Oh, well, I've left work for the day." But I think that, definitely the pros outweigh the cons. And, building on what Patrick said with varied roles, our farm, we will milk in the morning, 2 of us generally, and then in the afternoon it's just one person, and we've found having a work-life balance has been important to get off the farm, especially for Rowd. Playing sport, being involved in the community, those sorts of things are vital, and then finding a really good relief milker and someone to be part of your team.
There's some sage advice in there on work-life balance that I really appreciate, and I think most of us here would. Kristen, what about you? What have been your wins and losses, ups and downs in a career in ag?
Yeah, so I guess I'm fairly new in my career still, so I haven't had a lot of time to, build those wins and losses, but I think initially trying to get into a career in ag, so obviously not from a dairy background, more from a beef background, I found it kind of hard to take that first step and know where to go when I did find that passion for dairy. So that was probably a bit of a struggle for me, but once I found some networks and started to grow in that aspect, it kind of flowed, and you keep meeting more and more people, and especially you come to days like this and the opportunities to meet people are endless. So that was probably a bit of a struggle for me in the beginning. Some wins, I think, within dairy, there's so many opportunities to grow yourself both personally and professionally. Dairy Australia offers a lot of opportunities with regards to that. In particular, Gips Dairy has the Don Campbell Memorial Tour, where we send some people over to Tasmania to better understand dairy farming over there, and it's a great way for you to network, but also learn more about dairy farming. And there's a whole range of scholarships and applications that you can apply for that give you that opportunity to grow yourself and better your understanding of the industry. And I guess for myself, not coming from dairy, I kind of had the perspective that if I applied for something like that, I wouldn't get chosen, because who would want someone that's not from dairy? I tried to push myself away from that and just apply, and yeah, I've achieved a lot of different things through doing that. So I highly recommend giving any option a go, and even if you just get to the point of application and having an interview, like, it's such great experience to put yourself in those sorts of situations.
Fantastic. And I'm sure that some of these people will. I've got another question from the audience. So before we go to Patrick and you think about the highs and lows and the ups and downs, I might give us a break from my voice and go over to the audience and ask the panel a question.
This is actually for Amy. You mentioned that 50% of the pathways were in the city. And I was just wondering if you can elaborate on that for me, what type of pathways, because I'm a person who can't go out into the country, so I'm looking for something close. So could you just elaborate a little bit more on what type of pathways there are?
Yeah. For example, Dairy Australia has their head offices in Melbourne. So Kristen works in the Gippsland office, which is one of the offshoots, but there are lots of the peak industry bodies have main offices in the city. You could say the same for some milk companies, like processing companies, other ag-tech companies. So, for example, like the All Flexes, Gallagher's, some of those also have head offices in major metropolitan areas. And I also think, like I said, people working remotely now is not as challenging as it was 2 years ago. So I think there are, if you're the right person for the job, in a lot of instances, that's what matters, not your location. So I'm currently advertising for a position in our team at the moment, and because we have worked geographically spread for the last couple of years, we've actually opened that up to anywhere in Australia, whereas in the past we would have had to have it based in Rockhampton. So I think you've got a lot more opportunity now that everyone's got experience in that way of working. So yeah, I would just put in some research into companies and like roles that you're interested in, and seeing where their offices are based, how open they are to working remotely.
So Patrick, we haven't forgotten, and that was a wonderful answer there, Amy. We haven't forgotten though, mate. Ups and downs, highs and lows, wins and losses.
I think, like everything, you're going to have your good days and your bad days. Probably going back to what I said before about, finding a farm and a workplace and peers and like a network that suits what you want to do is probably the most important thing that's going to help you get that win. If you kind of just go it alone and just do what people kind of are ordering you to do, then you're going to feel like you're losing more than what you're achieving.
So be an innovator. Good advice, sage advice. Amy, I'm going to come back to you now for this next question, if I may. What are you most excited about now in ag-tech? I know that you've spoken about that. You've certainly got a PhD in that line of things. The Internet of Things, general technology in agriculture. What excites you the most at the moment?
Yeah, so my area probably in particular is around precision livestock management, and we do a lot of things with on-animal sensor technology, so GPS tracking and accelerometers of livestock. So a lot easier in a dairy situation because dairy cattle come to the dairy twice a day. So our farm has accelerometer collars, so our cows wear collars, and we can look on our phone and see an app as to how their health is tracking, but also whether they're on heat. So we also adjust putting in an automatic draft gate, which is going to assist in reducing the labour required in the dairy. So the research that I work on is all around how we can build capacity within our farmers and also agricultural professionals to use that technology. So it's all good and well having it there. It costs quite a lot of money in some instances, so making sure that people understand how to use it, how to use the information that comes to make the best decisions is one of our aims. So at the moment our team works on detection of calving, so using that sort of technology to detect when an animal's about to calve, especially in rangeland situations, so that if we know an animal's having trouble, we can go and check and assist. So I always give the example that when we first moved to our farm, we calve in winter. So it was a rainy day. I think we were day 3 there. We'd started calving, and this cow was like right out in the back, We had to cross a little river to get there, and I thought, I better go check her if she's calving and I'm going to miss her. She was fine, nothing was wrong. But if I'd had this technology, perhaps I could have just rolled over in bed and looked at my phone and said, oh no, I should go and check her. So I think there's some really good benefits, not just for the humans, but obviously animal welfare, which is incredibly important to everyone. I think we're making strides there in agri-tech especially.
And you touched on something there that I'd just like to explore and tease out a little bit more with you. You mentioned the fact of having the technology is great, and you know the expense of the technology certainly is outweighed by the benefits, but you have to have people that can use the technology. So for the young people here in the crowd today, how important is education in developing and expanding a career in agriculture now, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a range of career pathways that are supported by some really good educational options. So I went to university in Armidale in northern New South Wales, but I'm from Victoria. You can study online at a lot of universities as well, so I don't think we're bound anymore by where we live, where we want to study. So technology is great, but what we need in that new career pathways that you mentioned is people that can support farmers to get the best out of it on farm. So whether that's troubleshooting, so technology, always something goes wrong, so if someone can come out and assist us to get it working again, someone can help us make decisions, so that, we don't... So, for example, we get the data to say that our cows are on heat, and then we join them to a bull using AI. If those cows aren't on heat, we could just let them go and think, that's okay, that's all right. But what we do instead is use that data to work out which cows we're going to sell. So I think, supporting farmers to make better decisions to be more profitable and productive is a really important pathway.
What about our other panellists? What are your thoughts on education? I have no doubt that on farm we're seeing a lot more people and a lot more industries involved in the daily operations. What are your thoughts in general around education? Thank you very much, Amy.
Yeah, I guess similar to Amy, there's a lot of different opportunities available in a variety of different roles and ways to get there. You don't have to go to university. There's a lot of opportunities through TAFEs and stuff to educate yourself. And on farm, there's so many different roles that are available, and Dairy Australia does offer a lot of different training programs to try and upskill staff on best practice when it comes to all different farm aspects, whether that's calf rearing, pasture management, effluent stuff. The options are kind of endless in what we have on offer, and similar to TAFEs and university. So, if your learning style is not to go to university, don't feel like you need to conform to university just to get a career. I think there's a lot of different pathways that you can take.
And lifelong learning.
Yep.
Patrick.
When you talk about the dairy industry, a lot of people just get locked on, putting cups on cows, but the amount of inflow of, other, occupations, we've talked about technicians, feed nutritionalists, agronomists, a fencing contractor, there's so many other branches of the industry other than just on farm, and as as Kristen just said about education, you might be someone that you couldn't think of anything worse than sitting in the classroom, and for me that was myself as well. I haven't gone to uni. I never plan on going to uni. I've done other short courses to pick up things. Here I am, and here when I can, and as well as listening to people, moments like this, or a field day like today, you just go and ask questions. You're highly unlikely someone's going to just palm you off, because you are young, and people will take that time to put the effort into you to keep you around.
And isn't that wonderful that we have an industry that actually wants to look after you once you start, rather than chew you up and spit you out? So I think that's just an amazing reality of working in agriculture, Patrick. I think it's fantastic. Amy, what would you suggest to anyone listening? What's one takeaway that you would like to provide to the next generation of dairy leaders? Sorry, we might open this up to the whole panel as well. But you've done a lot of work in youth education and fostering youth education, so it's a good place to start with you.
Yeah, I think Kristen's already touched on it, getting out and meeting people, so networking. when you're at university or school or TAFE, all those sorts of things, generally they have some industry or ag businesses that they're working with. Take that opportunity to do some work experience or work placements, talk to as many people as you can. If you are looking at going on farm, getting some experience on farm is obviously really important as well. And if you want to work in a service industry, I think understanding how a farming enterprise works gives you that additional insight when you're working as an agronomist or a technician or anything like that. So I think attending these sort of activities, and I'd like to reiterate with Patrick says, if you are not going to university on TAFE and things like that, that doesn't prevent you from going later. So find that job that really interests you and then work out what education you require. So you don't have to do it that traditional pathway of leaving school, going somewhere, getting a job. If you have a job and then you work out you need some extra qualifications or upskilling, there are so many opportunities out there, and I don't think that, I know that we don't look and say, oh, this person doesn't have this qualification, we won't even look at them. Do they have that passion? Do they have that interest, that motivation and work ethic? So those soft skills that you can develop without having a tertiary education are more important than that piece of paper.
Kristen.
Yeah, I don't know if I have too much to add on to that, but no, that's all right. You had some really great points there. I had a quote said to me by someone when I was fairly early in my career, and it was, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. So I think it's so important to take charge of your career. No one's gonna provide you that golden pathway to get to where you want to go. So it's really up to you and motivating yourself and putting yourself out there and chatting to as many people as you can to open up those pathways for yourself. And don't feel scared to ask questions. No question is a silly question, and we're all around here to help provide that advice and kind of give you that direction if you put yourself out there.
Oh, well, just the other day, an old fellow where I just started working, he goes to me, opportunity outweighs money. And so when, I think it's with any career, not just in the dairy industry, that when you first go into a job, you might be only getting $16 an hour or whatever, but the more you progress, the more you work up. So then, you might be busting your gut to make a living, but you look back 10 years down the track and you feel satisfied with what you've done. But if you got handed everything on a silver plate, you'd be like, wow, this is great. And then later on, you'll feel like you haven't actually worked for anything.
So having a growth mindset and having goals and working towards them. That's good advice. And I think that's a fairly common theme from our three panellists on that question. So thank you very much. Patrick, what keeps you getting out of bed at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning and excited about your industry, mate? What is it? What's the passion? Where's the drive coming from?
Oh, well, for me, I've grown up all around stud cattle, and I love doing the actual farm work, but for me, it's sitting down, looking at a piece of paper and working out where a cow came from 10 generations ago, and picking that bull to put over this cow to correct her and get an even better calf to the next generation. And for me, it's all about the breeding. I love doing all the other jobs, but for me, about my passion for the industry is about 80% breeding, 20% everything else. So I just got told I could wake up at 9 and not 4, but at the same time, when it comes to the breeding, I like the milking because you're seeing the cows every day, you're learning them. You could look at a cow and go, wow, she's a real good cow, but when you milk her, you find out, this quarter doesn't milk out right, so there's something not quite right there that you need to fix. So,
Interesting perspective, and a very good one on being a good business manager. The guys in the bleachers obviously probably know that your average farmer these days is in charge of millions of dollars worth of infrastructure, probably deals with multi-million-dollar financing and loans. They are betting on the market. They are true greats and titans of industry. So your average farmer these days is equal to any of the businessmen in Collins Street, and they certainly use all of the same skills. So it's refreshing to see an active farmer reflecting on that in his answer to such a question. So thank you, Patrick. Kristen, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
I think there's probably two aspects to it. I think the farming community itself, there is so many great dairy farmers out there, and I really love providing support to them and being able to help them maximise profits on farm and just, being there to support them through the highs and lows. And there is so much available to them to try and make their businesses as profitable as can be. And then probably the other aspect is definitely technology and how fast the industry is growing. There's so many interesting pathways and I guess different technologies that you can apply on farm to make your farm as sustainable and as profitable as it can be. And I think that's a really exciting space compared to some other industries. I don't think there's any other industry that really quite compares to dairy.
For me, we worked really hard. It took us about 14 years to save for our farm. So we bought our farm 3.5 years ago, and I think that seeing all the improvements that we're making really excites me, and also being able to integrate what I do on the farm with my off-farm work and seeing how the industry is changing and bringing more young people on board and upskilling those that are already working in the industry. I think that, my home life and my work life are exciting, and we've got 2 young boys, so it's exciting to see opportunities that they may have as well into the future.
So a lot of great answers there, based around stewardship and based around entrepreneurship. Where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years, Patrick?
I suppose 5 years to me is probably a little close, but 10 years, I'd like to at least be, have a good share farm arrangement, or if things really went my way, be on the progress to farm ownership. So.
Kristen, where do you see the industry in 5 to 10 years' time?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a really good question. I think at the moment we do definitely have issues with labour shortages and stuff, so I think that needs to become quite a priority in the next few years, not only on farm but off farm. There's some critical gaps there that we do need to fill to try and, I guess, make the industry the best that it possibly can be, but it's a profitable industry to be a part of, and there's so many opportunities. No matter really what you want to do. So I think the industry does have a bright future, and definitely a bright future for young people.
Well, hopefully we've inspired some young farmers here today to knock on the door and find out how they can be part of that solution for you in the next 5 to 10.
To do that, we at Dairy Australia have the Young Dairy Network, which is available across all regional development programs across Australia, and we run regular events for young people, and it's a really great safe space for you guys to come together in sort of a discussion group format and just learn in a really safe environment and network, which is really great.
That's wonderful news. Amy, where do you see technology going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I think what we are seeing now will have advanced significantly. I think that, one of the greatest barriers, perhaps not down here, but across more remote areas of Australia, is just connectivity. So I'm hoping that in the next 5 to 10 years that will improve and give farmers more opportunities. I think that we'll be managing our properties on a more individual animal basis, being able to work out what parts of the pasture or soil need more attention than others. And I'm hoping, like Kristen says, that we'll be able to address our labour shortages by really getting people to be excited about a career in agriculture.
And I hope that we can do that, because it's one of the best areas to work in, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, we have a program down here called Race Gippsland, where we're working for the next 3 years with primary and secondary schools across Gippsland with young people to try and get them excited by showcasing how STEM, so science, technology, engineering and maths, is used in ag. So we like to say that STEM or agriculture is STEM in action. So hopefully by showing them that way, so those that aren't interested in a career on farm might be interested in a career in agriculture in a different perspective.
As we wrap up, from the 3 panellists, and we've probably already touched on a number of these questions, but what's your advice in 2 or 3 words for anyone who wants a career in dairy?
Meet someone today and ask them for an opportunity or experience or their advice or just their business card.
I guess mine's probably similar. Yeah, just put yourself out there and network with as many people as you possibly can, because it's going to provide you with numerous different pathways into wherever you might want to go with your career.
Yeah, and really the advice just extends out to really all careers and all aspects. Just, ask questions, just questions.
And a career can change. You can change your career, and you can change yourself, and you can often find yourself, if you really like the sound of something or the look of something, there's probably a reason for it. You're probably suited to it. So can we please put our hands together for our 3 panellists today, guys? I'd really like to thank the 3 of you for giving your time today and your expertise. And there's years and years and years of good advice, experience and intelligence sitting right in front of us here today. You are the finest in the industry, and so we thank you for giving up your precious time for us today. Thank you all.